Yeah, absolutely. I think our preference would be around a business case approach to regulation. I think what that enables is, and I think discretion is an interesting one, but I think it's also about the ability to recognize different business models and how they operate. I think the challenge with a blanket rule, albeit totally acknowledged, it's probably where government's headed in a broad sense, but it's sort of a bit blind to the impact it has on business models and therefore different members who sit within different business models. And I think, what we often call for from a now pensions kind of perspective is a recognition by policymakers that there is a variety of not just product design, but business model. And where we've developed our business model has been particularly focused on lower earners and smaller employers and supporting those members and employers through the automatic enrolment process. But that does mean we're designed in a slightly different way to other providers. So if you had more of a business case approach, what you could do, for example, is you could look at the broader group structure to see if there's capability around private market investment rather than say our only indicator about your capability is the size of your assets under management. So it would enable that kind of much more bespoking, and you would get the same outcome for members because you'd still get the private market investment, but without the upheaval that would be created to members if, for example, we can't meet the assets under management figure, which I have every confidence we will. But it's kind of having that ability to be able to look at a particular scheme and say, so what is it offering? What is it delivering? Is it meeting the sort of intended outcome rather than just one of these very high level indicators? And I guess, the high level indicators could be valuable in indicating that it's worth more attention on certain schemes to kind of scrutinize and look at what they're delivering. I think, the other element of the business case regulation would be, one example of that would be on the timing requirement. So I think the consultation document set out achieving these things by 2030. I think that's quite a challenging timeline. But I think when you're looking at a growing market, bearing in mind it's sort of an evolving growing market, people saving into DC is relatively new in sort of in terms of decades, and there's more growth to come. There's a lot more growth to come. So looking at in terms of trajectory of development, I think would be really helpful. To have that harsh cutoff, I think it is quite challenging, and it could also lead to kind of perverse impacts on market development because you might have clients that look and think, oh, we don't think you're going to meet your assets under management thing and shop elsewhere without realizing what plans the scheme has in place to achieve that or how it's going to go about achieving that. So I think the blanket rule, it sort of has some really, really impactful, are they side effects or are they intended effects? I'm not sure, but they have some really significant effects on competition in the market. So I think, yeah, a business case regulatory approach would just enable that greater scrutiny. I mean, we're not a massive landscape for these requirements because they're applying to multi-employer schemes and master trusts rather than single employer trusts. So it's not a huge market. So it kind of feels like a reasonable sort of challenge to make to government about could they consider that approach. But yeah, definitely think business. There's a lot to be said for business case regulation.